So case management concepts, we're going to take a little deeper dive into processes, stages, steps, child processes, child cases, sub processes, all the different shapes that you have, different types of approvals. So far, you've only seen a single approval. You're going to see that we have something called a cascading approval. We have an authority matrix if I need approvals from the outside. And how do we do different types of testing? So I want to get through all of that today. Hopefully we can get through it. And if so, maybe we'll have some time to get through a little bit more of it. But this is key to you understanding what you need to do and if you're going to go and build your system. So case management encompasses everything: the case type, the case life cycle, the processes, the user interfaces, the access to the application, anything that has to do with I need to manage this case data, and the associated people and personas that's actually using that. So how do I model, monitor, and track so that I make sure that my business is running efficiently? So these are business processes that used to be manual or never existed. They were someone's idea. Now I need to translate these into real automated processes that are very effective in how people who use them carry out the work. And we do that with grouping this work into high level stages, into processes, and down into steps, which is the granular level. Case management says it is a way to have a visual representation of a business case. What is it that I'm wanting to do? I want to go to a soccer event. How do I manage that business case? How do I visually represent that business case? I want to have a marriage. So, how do I go through that business case and how do I represent that visually in Pega? How do I model that business transaction? It is a transaction, it is an interaction between the user and the system and other systems. And so, how do I model that business transaction? You guys may have heard of model view controller, where you have these three separate parts that work together. The model gives you the gives you the data. The view gives you the UI model view, and then the controller controls the information as it flows and the logic that's associated with it. And finally, it's how do I track and monitor? How do I know that I'm doing what I need to be doing with this case? And that it's giving me the information, providing me what I need in order for me to run my business from a day-to-day standpoint. Well, let's take a look at cases. Make sure you understand the many different ways that I can create cases. I have parent cases and I have children cases. When I have a parent case, then that says that it's at a higher level than the child case when it comes to processing. It may or may not be that. If when I look at it from a technical perspective, they may be siblings, but I may say that I need this case to appear as a parent case and then call a secondary case. And if I do that by design, Pega is going to make it have a parent-child relationship. And a parent can have multiple children, just like people can. And those children can actually execute in parallel. But what's common in all of the processing in Pega, if I have a child case, the children must resolve before the parent can resolve. Give you a good example. American Express, they use Pega. And anytime you use their dispute system, you look at a charge and there's something wrong on the charge, you, the customer, will go and open a dispute. Now, watch this. There's a parent object or parent case type that is the main parent dispute. I come and I say, I need to look at that charge because I know I did not go to Toronto this week. I didn't make that. So it creates a child case under that. Well, in part of the dispute process, they then have to contact the company that charged me, and that they have to list why or why not, or why they charged me or why they didn't charge me. So they create another child case. And so now you have two children cases that are under the parent case. And so the way Pega works by default is that child or those children cases, they must be resolved, though they can be worked on in parallel, because one was routed to the company, the other one was routed to me. So we're working on it at the same time. But until both children's cases are resolved, then the parent case cannot be resolved. The other component that I have in a parent child relationship is when I have a parent child, how do I pass information from the parent to the child? That happens all the time. If I'm gathering information, like I said, in that marriage scenario, I've gathered all that information, and at some point I captured all of the guests. Then how would I then, when I come with that child process so that they can see the after party pictures, how could I get access to that information so that in the child, I can identify the guest and say, yes, you have access to look at this information. We have something called data propagation. So in data propagation, it says this. It says, when I instantiate the child at child creation, pass me the information from the parent. Let me say that again. At child creation, when the parent calls the child to be created, at that point, the initialization of that data is what we call data propagation. It passes a copy of that information to the child. Now, I'm going to skip over duplicate case, and I'm going to talk about case locking, because case locking has something to do with this parent-child relationship. So I have different strategies that I can set that says when I am operating on the parent, in whatever locking strategy that I have on the parent, I also put that same locking strategy on the children, to say that only maybe one user can get in on the parent, and then they can't get in on the children. Or I can say allow multiple users. So my locking strategy there says that somebody can be working on the parent, and many different people can be working on the children also. So you have those types of capabilities when you're working in Pega. So I've talked about these three concepts. Let's take about 15 to 20 minutes. Go into your exercise system. Now, if you have your Pega Academy exercise system, go ahead and bring that up. I want to walk through it, but I also want you guys to do some things too. It's nothing like touching the system to really understand what you're doing. And the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to go to Dev Studio. I want to talk about this parent-child relationship. I want to talk about a true parent-child relationship. I want to talk about a parent-child relationship from a design perspective, because I've called a create case in my life cycle, and then that makes Pega see that as a child. And we're going to talk about parent-child relationships. I'm going to have you create a parent-child relationship, be able to see the difference between a parent-child relationship, look at data propagation, how the data propagation works. You may not be able to set up some fields, but I'll at least show you how to walk through it, and I'll show you mine is set up. And I'll show you the case locking. That's very easy for me to do. So what does the application view tell you? This is telling you what? If I go to the application view, why am I going to the application view? What am I wanting to see? Someone? Versus going to the case type.
You're seeing all the classes within the
That's
application.
right. I want to see the class view. I want to see the class view. And in the App Explorer, the class view is showing me that this is the parent class, and I have 4 siblings. That is the technical implementation of the classes for this rental, for this tourist car rental application that I'm working on. I have 4, all 4 siblings. They don't share information with each other. I got children. Siblings don't share. Okay. Now, what happens when I go to the case type explorer? What is that showing me? It's not showing me classes, it's showing me what? I want to make sure you know the difference between the two so you know why to go to one versus the other.
And showing you the case types.
Yeah. So it's showing me the case types and it's also showing me what I call the design relationship between them. Remember, when I look at the app, it says these 4 are siblings. But what is this showing me? This is showing me what? Is it showing me that all 4 are siblings?
No, it's showing you that
No.
vehicle rental is related to rental reservation.
That's right. So based upon my life cycle, the way I laid it out, it changes the case type design perspective when it comes to relationship. Simply because I added this create vehicle rental, it went back and says, hey, this goes under this case type because this is a parent. This will be called from the parent, must be resolved before the parent can be resolved. That's a parent-child relationship. Now, I want you to create a case also. So go to your automations, click create case. We're just going to mimic what I did up here, but I just want you to see it and be able to do it. Select it. Okay. Now, when I come here, it shows me all my cases. I want to create a child case, not just spin off another case. So I then select that. And it gives me the opportunity now to create a data transform. Let me explain a data transform, then I'm going to show you a data transform. A data transform is a rule in Pega that's a sophisticated assignment operator. It's how you manipulate data, it's how you modify data. So why do I need a data transform when I am creating a case that is a child to a parent? Because of the data propagation that I want to do. I want to be able to pass information at initialization time to the child so that I can get information from the parent. I then can pass it to the child. So I would put a data transform there and I would make that actually happen. And when I do that, that's all I have to do to create that. That's the only steps required for me to create a parent-child relationship, and that child will be instantiated or will be executed when it hits this step in this process and will update itself with whatever information I passed in the data transform. Okay, now I'm going to delete that. I'm going to come here and they don't do anything either. So the other thing that I do want you to see is let's go and change from Dev Studio. Let's go to App Studio. Now you'll see in App Studio, you're not going to have a data transform. If you're going to create a parent-child relationship, best practice is to really do it here in the App Studio. It's going to do a lot of work for you. It's going to create that data transform if you want to pass something. So if I came here to App Studio and I want to do a data transform, come down, not a data transform, but I want to create case. I can select what I want. But now notice something. It asks me, do I want to transfer information? And it gives me a list of the fields from the parent that I want to transfer. Now that's cool because you didn't know what the parent had when I was in the other studio. When I was in Dev Studio, you didn't know. You would have to know, or you'd have to go and look. I come to App Studio, it's going to tell me, hey, these are the fields that are available for me to map. So if I select this, it will then create a data transform and will do the data propagation for me. All right, so let me cancel out of that. I want to make sure you're clear on the data transform concept and parent-child relationship and how all of that works. So I'm going to change to my application that I created yesterday. It was the youth sports management. Now you don't have that, or you may have your own application if you can switch to that one. But I want to show you, I went and did some additional work. I did some setup here. Go into, let me do this first. Let's go to Dev Studio and let me show you the difference here. Let's take a look at my case types. In my case types, this is showing what? I have one parent, and the one parent has how many children? 2. One parent has 2 children. I go to the class perspective, and I see this one parent, 2 children. But if you look at this, this is saying that the football video case type has 2 children. When I look here, it shows that the football video and the team schedule, they're both siblings. But I did create a real parent-child relationship because if you look here, this child team schedule, this one is a real child, a physical child to the football video. All right. So let me show you how to create this type of relationship. Because with this type of relationship, there's no real concept of data propagation because the child already has access to what the parent has. So if you understand that from an object-oriented perspective, child inherits what parent have. When you have a real child-parent relationship, then you have that inheritance model coming into play. So when I look at this, this is telling me, I know now this is a real parent-child relationship. This is a design parent-child relationship because I've called the team schedule and I've created it in my case lifecycle. All right, so let's just go back to App Studio and I'll show you this. So now you see that I do create schedule here. I do my create schedule there. I have it set up to where it does a transfer of information. Now, I want you guys to watch this because you may have to do this when you're working on your project. So if you want to call another case, a child case from a parent case, here's the skill to do that. You create a create case in App Studio. Best way to do it, you come over and you say, look at what information you want to transfer and what case you want to call. That's all you have to do. Let me show you what it ends up building for you. Now, if you want to see what it's doing for you, go to Dev Studio and look at the case lifecycle and come and click on it. And notice that it built this data transform for me called create case to do the data propagation. How do I do data propagation? With a data transform. So data propagation, let's come over here. I can open it by clicking on the gadget. In the data transform, look at it from a very simplistic perspective. Here's a source, here's a target. It's like an assignment operator, and here's a relationship operator. So if you look at this 1.1, it's saying what? Take .team schedule, and we know that team schedule is a reference to a data object. And he says, take all of that information associated with team schedule and assign it to current schedule. So if you didn't know the syntax when I wanted to reference a property, now you know it. It has the member of operator. If you guys are familiar with what I'm talking about, but I want to reference a property in any of my fields anywhere, any of my rule form fields anywhere, I need to use a dot. Okay. So what is this really telling me? This is telling me that I need to copy this information, but it also tells me what the system is smart enough to say, I need to come from the parent page, my source, to my primary page, which is my current active page that I'm on. Now, the reason I tell you to do it from App Studio is it had to set up these other tabs for you that you're not familiar with yet. So this will allow you to pass parameters. So there's some passing of parameters that happens to this rule. It's almost like a method. It passes in the information so it then can execute. Pages and classes allow you to set up additional properties that you can reference. So they're saying this parent page, parm name is really a property that's referencing the work-football video. So some of this is really obscure that you really want App Studio to do it for you. That's why we say do as much as you can in App Studio. When you can't do it in App Studio, then go into Dev Studio. But this is where I learned how Pega is doing things. I go to App Studio, I create something, then I go look and say, that's what they did. Okay, now I understand. So if I have to fix something and manually go in, now I have to know how to go. Now I know how to go in and do it. Okay. All right. So here you also see that what I said, I actually created a child process. So let's actually run it. Let's run it. Let me show you. Let me show you what's actually going on here. Now, I also have a decision shape here, just so that you guys know what's happening. I come to select games. I build a schedule. I make a decision if it's football or not, and then I'm going to create a schedule if it happens to be football. I need to see a better view of that. To see a better view of that, I'd go to the process and I'd open the process. And this is where you want to work from. Because now you're building more complex decisioning, and you will have lots of decisioning in your project that you're working on. How do I create and how do I use a decision shape? I come here, I click on it, and I got a decision shape. I'll have an additional conversation about it later on, but it's that easy, and then I can assign it to if it's true or if it's whatever the outcome is, I can determine where I actually want it to go. And when I'm connecting it, I have to connect it. I can pull it out of this node, and I need to connect it with the node for it to actually work. Okay. So that's just how you get to that. Now I'm gonna have a hard time getting rid of this, and it's gonna drive me crazy. Stop it. Okay. All right. But basically, I'm building a schedule here, and then I'm making a determination of, now, I happen to have a when rule on this. I'm just saying when it's football only, and I'm doing a very simple check. When the schedule type is equal to football, then I want to follow this path. Very simple check, but it can be really, really complex with a lot of if, then, else's if you want to do that. But just showing you concept here. This is an else. I should really put else here. So my connector says else. So this is my else condition. So if this is not true, then it'll follow this path, which says what? It's not going to create my child process. Pretty cool, pretty simple, but I'm showing you a lot of concepts here. I'm showing you how here's a UI. The UI, I take information, I'm making a decision. Based upon that decision, I'm going this way and I'm creating a child case. Based upon this decision, I'm not creating a child case, I'm checking for something else. Very simply done. I get into a flow rule to do that. You can't do that in a step anymore. Now you got to get into the flow rule and you're starting to build some intelligence, some real intelligence into it. All right, so I'll come back and close this. Now, the whole point of this is for me to show you what? Parent-child relationship, how information gets passed through data propagation. All right, so now let's go ahead and run it. And I'm running it from Dev Studio because remember I said if you run it from App Studio, I couldn't see the clipboard. Last night I was working on it and somehow I was able to see the clipboard because it had this view and it had another little window view. So maybe it's the size of my screen, but you can see it in the App Studio. But I'm gonna do mine in Dev Studio. And again, it's going to show me a screen, gonna make a decision, and it's going to create this if it's football. And I'll make it happen to where it actually creates it because I want to show you in the clipboard that we went over yesterday how that information looks. So I'll save and run. Okay. So this is the create. It's a little different. All right. So here's my type. I'm gonna say football. Schedule 2024. Now I have repeatable information I want to put here. So I want to say the first game was the 18th, home team Athens. If I can spell. Score was 20 to, it's not a good soccer score, right? 6 to 3. We just beat y'all. I just want you to know that. All right. It's the only time we'll ever win. We'll come back and I'll say, actually that should be Texas. All right, let's come back and let's say I don't know. London, 9 to 5. and they played Italy. Okay, so that was a tie, so they didn't win. I have my type, I have my year, and I have my 2 games. I want this information passed to the child if I create a child case. All right. I hit submit. Okay, and it takes me to the finance. So it took me through here to the finance. Now, it's a little nuance when you're doing a test. I have to go here to see if it created a child case. So I come to action and I create refresh. There's my child case. Okay, so it did create a child case for me. Here's my football. The schedule year is a little hard to see, but I can say go so it can execute my child case. And let's see if it passed my information. So it goes through the create. There's my information. Let's go to the clipboard. How did the information get there? Now let's take a look at this. Can someone remember which system property has the executing object? That's a testable question.
The PY work page.
PY work page. Make sure you see how it's spelled. PY lowercase work page. PY work page will never have a dot before it. So if you're taking a test and they're asking about PY work page, they have a dot before it, it's incorrect. You will never reference PY work page with a dot. Okay? It's always PY work page. So I go to PY work page and I expand it. And here's my property called current schedule. Remember on the data transform? That was the current schedule that came from the team schedule. And you look at it, it has 2 rows of 2 objects in it. Here's the first one. There's the second one. Okay. Now, that information was passed, it was propagated to me from the parent. When you have a parent-child relationship, then the parent, when the child is being called, then they have to move the parent off of PY work page to PY work cover. In Pega, we are saying that the parent covers the work of the child. So we have a PY work cover. Okay, notice that both of them are of the same work type. I open PY work cover and I look for team schedule. I go to team schedule, and in team schedule, you see there are my 2 rows. So what happened at data propagation? At the instantiation of the child case, that data transform called dot team schedule and copied over the list to dot current schedule of the child. That's data propagation. Okay. And that answers the question about parent-child relationships, how that works. And then the other one, I'll go back, talk about the case locking. So I'll come back to App Studio. If you guys are following me now, we can go back to the rental reservation and you go to settings. Now in settings, if you come down, you'll see locking strategy. And this is basically where you go and set the locking strategy. So locking strategy is set at the case type. At the case type. And you need to go to the parent case type to set the locking strategy. You want to allow one, allow all to work on that. And it gives you an idea as to what you can do. Okay. Anyone have any questions about the creation, the establishment of a parent-child relationship, calling a child from a parent, doing the data propagation? Okay, great. One other thing that I did want to share with you, because I didn't show you how to do that, how to actually create a real parent-child relationship where that it shows up as a child class. So if you come to, you actually create a case type. If you come to the case types, let me just show you. So you should have rental reservation, or you should have your main case type. Even if you don't have a child, just come here and you can do add case, and you do it in Dev Studio. And I'm gonna say another child. Now, before you hit submit, again, we hadn't talked about this yet, but we are getting there. Remember, we have this directed and this pattern naming convention. If I want it to be a true child of rental reservation, then that should be the name that I'm putting here, that is going to derive from. For right now, you want them both to be the same. There are instances when you don't, but I'm explaining this. So this is saying that this is the parent to the case type that I'm getting ready to create. I hit submit. And it goes round and round and round. Okay, it goes and creates it. Okay, so now let's come to the App Explorer and refresh it. Okay, nothing should have changed here. Are these, in my case, these four siblings are there. But now if I go to rental reservation, now you see I created a child, a true child under that parent. Give me a thumbs up if you guys did it and got it to work. Okay. So now you've created a real dependency. If you do something like that, your thinking is this class will never be a standalone class by itself to be called. It will always be dependent upon the parent. But if I made it like this where they're siblings, I'm basically saying that they could be independently called and they could be created from the create menu. That's my concept. That's my thinking. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the duplicate case search. A duplicate case search is for you to be able to identify certain properties in a case that will indicate from your perspective that it's a duplicate and you don't want the user to continue, or you give them the option if they want to continue or not. So it has two options that you have. It has basic conditions. Well, let me go back. Hold on. Okay. It has basic conditions that says if my evaluation criteria is met, that's step one. It's something for me to consider and to investigate. Then I have what's called my other weighted conditions that says if my weighted conditions also are a match, then from my perspective, I'm calling that a duplicate case type. And I don't want them to continue, or it will pop up a UI for me, give me a decision to make if I want to keep it or if I want to delete it. Okay. So let's actually take a look here. Let's take a look at the duplicate case type. I'm going to go back to case types on rental reservation. And you can come to the last step and you can click on step. Click on step for me. And you can click on more automation actions. And you're looking for duplicate, search duplicate case. You're going to search the duplicate case. Now, notice what it says. Over here, I have a base condition. What's my base condition? Let's go ahead and click on it. Find a field. Really doesn't matter. Let's just go with the case ID. So I'm saying if the case ID is the same, now in our case, it never should be, but if it is the same, then we need to have a weighted condition that says that if it's equal to this or if it exceeds it, then we want to look at this and say it is a match. So I would give 15 points to this. And I want to look at the description. If it's equal to old, I'm just putting that in there. And then I'll add another one for 10. Doesn't have to equal to 20, but if one exceeds it, where one exceeds it, then, and it's created by the same operator, see if I can select another field. Should give me a list of fields. My system is working. Come on. Create operator, okay? Okay. So what did I just build? Or what did you build? You built something that says my base condition, I'm going to say this is a potential duplicate if the case IDs are the same. Now, in order for me to say that it is a duplicate, if it's equal to or exceeds 20 based upon my values for my weighted conditions, then it will be a duplicate. So for instance, if I hit both of these, if both of these end up being true, then it's 25. So then it would say, yes, this is a duplicate based upon my selection criteria. If it only hits 15 or it only hits 10, we'd say, well, no, it doesn't meet the criteria. So it's not considered a duplicate based upon my evaluation criteria. Make sense? All right, great. So now that I've done that, I'm going to close it because I don't want to change it. I'm going to go back to my system. I did a little work on my system just so you guys could see it. I'm going to switch. Come on, let me switch. I'm going to switch back to this. I know. Okay, I'm going to come to my video and I have a duplicate search here that basically says, let's take a look at what this is saying. If the schedule year is the same, so I've already created some objects out there for a given year. I believe I got 2024 or something like that. And if the type is football, so if it meets both of those as 20, it's going to be considered a duplicate. So this particular rule or step, let's go into the flow. Notice that this is a blue shape. This is called a subprocess. A subprocess. A subprocess contains another flow shape. It's a way of saying, here's a flow rule that I'm in, and I'm calling another flow rule. It's another way to call a flow rule from a flow rule. So we call it a subprocess. As a matter of fact, Pega has created many automations that are subprocesses: the approval, the search, the questionnaire. And you can select the plus, and you can see the flow. So this is saying, get the cases. So it's hitting a database using the utility. It's doing a condition. If it found duplicates based upon what we were looking for, it's going to display a UI. We didn't build it, Pega built it. Then it's going to allow you, based upon your selection, did you want to resolve it? And then it's going to end the flow. That's how it's going to work. All right, so now that we know that, I'm going to save and run. Should be pretty easy to see. Oh, come on. Don't do that. Let me change my system and then come back. Oh, you know what? That's not the problem. I didn't know that I had created a step. Hold on. Let's go back into this. Let me click on step. Get back into video. And it's probably okay now. Now let's save and run. There we go. All right, so this comes up. This is the create. That's what that first create UI is doing. It automatically creates that. I just ignore it. So here's my schedule type. I won't say football. The year I used 2024. So I think those two will match for me. I'm not going to put anything else here because I should get a duplicate match. So you guys, you see this? This UI comes up for me. Display duplicate case. This UI comes up for me, tells me, hey, this one already exists out there. Do you want to close this one or you want to ignore it and continue? Okay. So that's a very, very powerful but easy to use feature in Pega that we can utilize. We'll take a deep dive into steps and shapes. We've seen them before, but I want to get into the exercise system to make sure that we walk through ones that I think will be useful for your project. And of course, those that you'll be tested over that you have a good understanding of. And shapes like service level agreement, those are very, very important when you're working on a case, or you have a human that they are required to complete a task within a certain amount of time. So they put a time on it, and we'll talk about the milestones that are associated with it. Very sophisticated, but used throughout case management processes as we go through building solutions. So let's go ahead and drop into your exercise environment. I'll go back to the more common one that you guys should have. And we want to take a look at these. We want to take a look at all of the shapes. I want you to be able to drop into them and configure them a bit. So let's actually do it from Dev Studio because there are more shapes. There are more shapes that you don't see in App Studio. So the reason we're doing it in Dev Studio so you can see all of the shapes. If you're in App Studio, you're not going to see the advanced shapes. I'll go to this rental reservation again. And let's see. Let's go into this collect information. That's not what I want to do. I want to go in and create a new customer. Sorry about that. And open the process. Create a new customer, open the process. Now, you are aware that the updates are bi-directional. So just make sure that you're familiar with this. Let's come here and let's grab a subprocess. We're not going to name it. Make sure you learn how to navigate with these. Take the connector, go to the node, move it here, then take the node, pull out of that, and then move it there. See how much dexterity you have. Make sure that those connect. That's important, that those connect. They should actually snap. See, I pulled out a different one. It should turn green and it should snap, and then you know it's connected. If you ever get an error that says stuck in the flow, that's the common term, stuck in the flow. That means that your connectors are not connected. It could only get to here and it really couldn't see that. Now, save it. Oh, shoot. I actually have to put something in it. Okay, so this is a flow rule, so you gotta put something in it. So let's go ahead and open it. And it doesn't matter. Remember I said that a subprocess is a flow rule, the way you call a flow rule from a flow rule. So it's requiring you to put a flow rule in it. So let's just find one. Remember I said if you have this over in the right-hand corner, then you can hit your down arrow. Once you locate in, it will give you the charts of those rule types. The rule type is a flow rule. Here's all the rule instances that are created in the work rental reservation. Now remember, work rental reservation has a parent called what? Tours, car rentals, work. So if I want to see more, it's going to take me to, here's my work reservation. Oh, it's going to take me because we don't have any rules in that particular work. So it goes up above that and it takes me to work cover. And then it takes me to work. Then it takes me to base class. Now, that's our directed inheritance that we inherit from. Remember, I told you about those two inheritance models. So you inherit, it's dual inheritance. Pega is dual inheritance. You have a direct inheritance model and you have a pattern inheritance model. So base class to work dash cover is all considered directed inheritance. Okay. Now, doesn't matter which one you choose because we're not going to run it. So just go ahead and choose one so that it satisfies the criteria. Except for this one is going to ask me for, oh, this is asking for too much. Hold on. I'll just choose something like approval reject flow. Now I don't have to do anything. Submit it, save it. Okay. Now let's go back to case lifecycle. I want you to see how it really updates it. It's bidirectional in its updates. So you need to do a save and run, and sometimes you'll get an error that it's stale. So it's stale because it tried to write to the database, you updated the rules database, and it didn't do it. And so just come back and hit save again. Come on. Saving. It's stale. So go to the action, do a refresh, and then it shows up for you. So you'll get that in these test systems all the time. I hope you don't get these in your production systems, your production system or your development systems when you're at work. Then they're not having to optimize. So you then see this. So whatever you do here as a step shows up in the flow rule as a shape. Whatever you do in the flow rule as a shape shows up as a step here in the case life cycle. The only confusion is when you use the decision criteria, use the decision shape, they'll put it in a certain place, but you really do have to get into the flow rule so you understand what the decisioning is. Okay, so let's go back into this process. Let's go ahead and delete all of this. We don't want to mess this up. I can only delete it. Okay. Delete. I want to take this and move it here. I can delete the subprocess. Okay. So let's come take a look at the decision shape. Click on the decision shape, pull it out. In your decision shape, it's one of the more versatile shapes that we have. Most shapes require only one rule. The decision shape can actually accommodate about 7 or 8 different rules. If I go to my decision shape and I can double click to open it, or I can right click and then click to open it, you'll see that I have a variety of rules that I can configure my decision shape with. Now, I want to talk about the decision shape because you probably will use the decision shape a lot in your project. If you're trying to make a decision if something is a simple yes or no, true or false decision, use your decision shape, use the Boolean expression. Okay, use the Boolean. So then you're writing some expression and whatever the result is either true or false. So you may have a couple of properties, right? Something dot something is equal to it. And if it's true, you want to do this versus if it's not true, you want to do something else. Or you may have a Boolean property itself that's either set to true or false. So you could use that as the criteria for a Boolean expression. All right, we have something called a decision table. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into details about a decision table. I'm going to show you how to quickly create one, give a brief explanation, but I'll talk about it later on. You may want to set up in your project a decision table to where you have a list of items or a list of approvers or some type of list of people that you want or some data that you want to evaluate, and you can do it with a decision table where you can use this decision shape to do that. So let's create a decision rule. I always just call it my decision. And I come here and I create the rule. So go ahead and open it, create and open. This looks like what? Looks like a spreadsheet, right? So this is a great candidate for business architects. They use this a lot. Easy for them to come in and configure a decision for something. Has many other features that I'll talk about later on. But basically, I can say if this condition is true, and I want to find a property, so I can say if the rental customer, click here, and then I do dot again. So now when you see the 2 dot notation, you know that it is a data object. Really easy to see, right? Single dot, it's not a data object. Double dot, 2 dots, it is a data object. So the rental customer reference property is pointing to, I'll just say, you can choose whichever one you want to, last name. You got this operator that you can do evaluations, do a save. So if the last name is equal to Joe, then I want to say up. Now I want to say manager. Otherwise, say customer. You see that? I can put anything I want to in there. I can put numbers. I can put anything I want to. I can put another property, return this property value, do anything. Very, very powerful to use. If I wanted to add more, if then else, you see these? Again, I'll come back and talk about all of this later, but I then can do that. Else if it's John VP. I also can add columns, right? So now if I want to say if last name and if first name, okay? So now the way I would read this is if the last name is Joe, and if it meets that criteria, send back manager. Else, if the last name is John and the first name is Booth, send back VP. Otherwise, send back customer. Again, it's a lot more this can do. Just want to show you this simple concept. Now save it. And you could have made up anything to put it in there. Doesn't matter as long as you had at least 2 returns. You save this. I've called it my decision. I come back to this. So this is the way you navigate Pega. You got all these tabs open, right? This is my life cycle. This is where I was working. This is what I just got through doing. I save it, come back to this tab because I may have to go back and change this. Come back to this tab and I submit it. Oh, hold on. I forgot. This should not have a space in it. And I don't know why it let me put a space in it. And let me save it. Now, notice what it did. I'm always fascinated. It automatically creates all of these connectors for you based upon your output that you were looking for. That's pretty cool, right? Kind of ugly. I need to move it around, but I can start here and say based upon some type of decision that was made. Then if it's a certain value, I want to go to VP versus manager versus customer. So decision table is a great one to use, right? It's a really good configuration. Come back. I'm probably going to just delete. I thought it would delete all the lines too, but it doesn't. Okay. Come back and add the decision again. Open it up. There's something called a decision tree. We'll talk about that later on. It's a little bit more structured if then else that you can use, but we'll talk about that one some other time. Fork, I showed you that one. That's a when rule. I put a when rule at the end of each connector. So that's a very simple one to use. And don't even worry about map and predictive score yet. If you guys get in something really advanced and you're doing it, then we'll show you how to go in and use these. These are fairly easy. But I showed you that because out of all of the shapes, it is a basic shape, but it's definitely a shape that you really want to use. Okay, when you're looking at your decisioning. Usually we don't use the utilities. The utilities are often automations that are made easier for you to use. You'll see that a lot of our utilities or a lot of our automations come from the utility, where we can attach content. Remember I said if you need it so that the user needs to attach something to your case, then you put that step in it. When you run it, then you see the dialog that comes up. If you want to move to the next stage or the next step, you can definitely do it here. You may want to do that when you have a alternate step. And in the alternate step, there may be some corrective measure you want to take. So for instance, if you go to that alternate step and you have a close because they hadn't responded to you in a certain amount of time, you could say, oh, I'm going to give you one additional day or some additional time. So I'm going to change to this stage and put you back to a certain place. Okay, so you can do that. You can go automatically to the next stage. We know what create case is. If you want to create a PDF, then based upon the data that you have within your case, it would use the property values to help you create a PDF. It's going to use that correspondence rule as typically the original rule to draw from. You can create many different type of documents. We'll skip the persist case. That's more of an advanced concept. You won't need to persist the case in your environment. The data save page and the data load page, I'll talk about those Monday or Tuesday. So you'll get a great understanding when you want to write something to the database. Personally, you want to write it to the database instead of Pega doing it for you, then you'll know how to do that. Post is when you're wanting to post communications, mostly internal, like the notifications. So you see the pulse on the App Studio. We saw that the other day. Run a data transform. Typically data transforms you can run from anywhere, and you will typically run them from one of the other rules. But if you just want to run a data transform, you can call it independently. run something in the background. You'll definitely use the send email when you're going to send it out. You typically don't send notifications unless they're internal. Yes, Nadar? Nadar?
I have a question about the decision shape.
Yes.
I see that it has 4 points. Does that mean that you can only have 3 outputs and then 1 input?
No. You can pull several out of each node. Let's see. Here's another one. My dexterity. See that both came out the same node. It's a bit convoluted. And you actually even can send it into the same node that it's coming out of. Right.
Okay.
But that doesn't look very pretty, right? So you do try to, and here's a rule of thumb in Pega. It's best practices to not have more than 4 connectors coming out of a shape. Okay. That's an awful lot of connectors coming out of a shape. Does anyone else have any questions? So make sure you make good use of the decision shape. That's a really good one to use. We're going through the automations. So email, you guys know how to send an email. It allows you to configure it. It's if you want an email address or a field, or just say whoever the participant is, you can put a subject, football tickets. Now, this same thing could be done as a step. Remember, you can be done as a step also. You can have a custom message, have a correspondence rule that it will generate for you. But here I can go in and write the message. I can change the font size, type. I can bold it, underline it, change the color. Okay. So it gives you all those features. If I needed to import, did anyone remember what I said about if you wanted to create it and say, thank you for your season tickets, you paid X number of dollars, how you could pull in a property? Here's the icon right here to the right, where you could then find that, and you'll know it's a property because it puts it in the double quotes. I'll make it a little bit smaller so you can see it. See, it puts it in the double quotes for you. Now, custom message that you compose here will only be used once at this place. If you wanted to use the same message over and over again, go ahead and create a correspondence. All right, go ahead and create a correspondence, and you can create a new correspondence. That way you have a rule, and now you can reference that same rule over and over and over again in many different places. But if you use the custom, it's only for that particular shape at that particular time. Go away. All right, so update case, approval. Let's talk about the approval. We have different types of approvals. Actually, let's go ahead and talk about it since I'm here. Tell you mine. Really acting funny. Okay. So notice on an approval, by default, you guys are only seeing a single level approval. I can have a cascading approval. You guys know what a cascading approval is? You ever had an expense report that was more than what it should have been? And so it goes to your manager, then your manager has to take it up to the director, and director has to take it up to the VP. I have to tell you an interesting story. I went to visit one of the universities, and we went to a steakhouse, and we were only supposed to, we only get like $100 a day. But we got carried away, and the bill ended up being like $450. So anyway, I had to work with my director to not let that happen again. So, but it went up the approval process because it was over a certain amount, and that's a cascading approval that actually had it happen. Now, the approval happened with this reporting structure. What's a reporting structure? It's an internal structure that we have when we set Pega up. We say that an operator is associated with a certain unit, with a certain group. And so, and it specifies who my manager is. And it specifies who's my manager is, and specifies who's my manager is. So we have this inherent built-in ability to do routing to anybody internally because we have a quasi-reporting structure that we have in place. But I can change to what's called an authority matrix. And that's basically saying I'm going to build a list of approvers. I may do that from a data table. I showed you guys where I created the table there. I can do it from that table, and I can put their rank, and I can put their name or their level of approvals. And so I can use this authority matrix to say, I need these people, and they're outside of my manager. There are other people in the department that I need to approve it, right? I can even say it's someone outside of the company. So for instance, I know that State Farm Insurance uses Pega, and typically when you file a claim, guess what you have to do? You have to file a claim with them. They have internal people that have to approve it. If they cut you a check, or they're going to say, this is what we're going to pay you. We need you to agree to that. You're one of the approvers. They send you a link so you can click on it, and you have to approve. Well, I know they use an authority matrix to make that happen, because I'm an external approver, so I need to be a part of that authority matrix. They have this list of people that they are going to look at. Look, it's called a page list property. Remember, the list is a repeating set of objects, got a repeating set of list of names that will be selected. And so all of the people on that list will have to approve. So that's what we have for the approval. Now, you probably won't have anything that sophisticated in your project, but it's definitely a rule that you'll use in many of the projects in Pega. And then we'll come to, we looked at the duplicate, and then all the others about a questionnaire. These are very simple. If you want to do a questionnaire at the end, that would be a nice touch too. Now, these advanced shapes are not found in the App Studio. You will not find them when you come to the flow for the App Studio, but you'll find them here. And these are advanced. I'd just like to tell you what they are. You may want to, if you get confident, you may want to build, I'll just start here. You may want to build a connector, a integrator shape, to where you build you a service, you can connect to that. Or you may find some public credit score or something, you may want to go out to it. Well, here, this is the shape that will allow you to build a connector. So this is services, right? You got a service and a connector. The integrator is going to talk to the service. So for instance, banks want to know your credit score. They then will call some service from a connector, from an integrator. You can set Pega up as a service. You can also use the Q robot that we have within Pega. And then I want to talk about these last two. These last two are often used in in the projects that you do. You probably won't use them in your project, but the split each means that I got multiple objects, a list of objects coming in, and I want to split them, each one off in different processes and iterate over them. Okay. This is a split join, which says I then have this set of objects coming, and I need to split them, send one way, one the other, and maybe I have the feature to say both have to complete before I join and go forward, or I can say anyone can complete, any one of these processes that I'm splitting can complete before I go forward. So those are other options. So if you guys want to get fancy, you have these two that you definitely can use. Okay. All right, so let me go and run. Let's see, I think I have an example of a couple of these. Let me go back and look at this. I don't want to keep. Let me say that. Let me go back to my example because I went and configured some examples for you guys here. I think I had. I showed you the decision. I showed you the. See, what else did I have here? I showed you the child. Showed you the decision. We did the duplicate. Okay. Oh, so the email. Just to show you, I know we've talked about the email and it's very easy to do, but I've set this up. Now you don't have a real email server, but you'll see it at the end when you run it here. I've sent it to my email address. The subject is the season ticket holder. I went in and I composed this email that basically says, thank you for payment of, and then here's the season cost. All right, so that's a property that I imported. How did I import that property? I came here and came down until I found season cost. All right. I went in and I then selected that. Right. See, is there anything else? I could just put the ID. Oh, let's put something else here. Something else that really makes sense. Let's just put the create date. Okay. So I end up putting that there. All right. So I'm going to walk through this whole process so I can get to the finance screen, put some money in, and it's going to generate an email for me. Save and run. So here's my default create screen that it creates for me. I'm going to, I know if I put in no track, if I put in swimming, I know I don't have duplicates there. So 2023, I'm going to bypass everything. Oh, I do have a lot there. Just ignore and continue. Okay, so it takes me to the season cost. Season cost $600 for the season. Now notice my links over here. If you do an email, then after the shape runs, you should find your email over here or your attachments. You'll find them over here. So you say submit. And notice it went from 0 to 1. You can find your attachment. Here's the title, season ticket holder. It was generated a minute ago. And you get an email that basically says, thank you for your payment of $600 to purchase the season tickets. And it has today's date. Very, very simple to do. Very simple to do. but very, very powerful. Okay. All right. So the next shape I want to talk about is an SLA. SLA. Can someone tell me what is an SLA? Anyone know what an SLA is? Service level agreement. You guys familiar with those? In Pega, I can put a service level agreement on a case or on a UI. That used to be the classic way. Now you can put a service level agreement on anything, which is really weird. But we're going to talk about the two main places you can put a service level agreement on. And that's on the entire case, and it's on the UI. And why do you do that? Because let's say that you're in the business of making sure that you reply to people within a 2 to 3 day period. And you have people in your organization that will handle these concerns that people are sending in. So you want to make sure that when it comes to their work list, when it comes to the list of work they can do, and remember, work is a case that they have to work on. When that work comes to them, then they have X number of hours or minutes or days to get it done. If not, then we can notify managers, or we can do an automation, or we can do many other things. And we have different levels of that we look at when we're looking at SLAs. So let's go to the case type. You guys, if you're following me in this exercise, so we'll just stay with this one. Okay, and let's go to customer, collect customer information. If I want to set an SLA, it's called goal and deadline. So go ahead and click on goal and deadline. Okay. And in goal and deadline, you want to change it to, I want a custom SLA, which means I want to create my own SLA. So I'm creating a SLA, and I'm looking at it, and notice that I have a goal and I have a deadline. We call these milestones. Here you're going to only see 2 milestones. When you get into the SLA itself, you open up and look at the rule, you'll see a 3rd milestone. It's called past deadline. The goal is typically used to say internally, this is what I've said I need my people to meet. You know, if they want to be a top performer, let me put it this way. If you want to be a top performer, here's the goal that we set for my team. So something comes in, I may contractually only say, we'll get it done in 3 days. But I'll tell people on my team, our goal is to get it done in a day and a half. You get it done in a day and a half, you meet the goal. We give you 1.5 days to complete it, 0 minutes. Well, let's just say two days instead of 3. You want to do it in 2 days. Now, what happens if this assignment has been routed to you? Let's just say that to a particular person. So we're routing. We don't want to route it to this guy because this is the guy who created it. But well, that's the only guy I got. All right. So let's say that it gets routed to you. So when it's routed to you, that concept of routing something to you means it's in your work list. It's in your work list. As soon as it hits your work list, if there's an SLA on it, then the timer starts. Soon as it hits it. So at Friday at 3:45 p.m., this case type comes to my work list. What does that work list look like? It's okay if I discard that. This is my work list. On my portal, I have a work list, and notice that these are all of my case types. This is the PYID, the instance object of all the cases that I have worked on recently. Okay. All right, so I go back to my goal and deadline, and you see that it tells me that I have 2 days. If I don't resolve this, move it out of my work list, close it, within 2 days, then my urgency is going to increase. Now, all of this is happening because a manager is getting a report that they're getting daily reports to see how many items, how many work items are in the team's queue and what the urgency is. The higher the urgency is, then the worse off the problem is. Let me just put it that way, okay? Because basically, it starts off with a default value of 10. So if you have an assignment, comes into your work list, it's automatically assigned 10. If you don't solve it by the goal, then it's going to increase by 10. So it goes from 10 to 20. Okay. Now, at that point, I could send an internal notification to the person that was assigned, it was assigned to, which you probably will do. You send a default notification that basically says, look, you didn't reach the goal. So now you got an email saying, okay, I failed on that. But as far as the contract we have with the external companies, we promised we'd get back within 3 days. So we would come here and we'd say our deadline is 3 days. Now, I don't want you to think that it's 5 days. It's not 2 days plus 3 days. The goal is always within the deadline. All right. So when I say it's 3 days, then that says this is the maximum amount of time that I'm saying that I need to satisfy this. Okay. But now my urgency went from 10 to 20 because I didn't hit the goal milestone. If I don't hit the deadline, then it's going to increase by 40. So now what is my urgency? Make sure you guys are following me. What is my urgency? 60, right?
Yeah.
So that's a cumulative number. So now it's at 60. So now I probably want to send out a notification to my manager to just let me know that something's going on, or maybe based upon the type of assignment it is, I may just want to resolve it and say, that's okay. That's not the type that we really want to take any action on, but it is going to show up on my report. I have a way I can report all work items and how they resolve, even the status that they're in. Okay. All right, so that's how you can go and you can set a goal and you can set a deadline on a assignment. As I mentioned before, you can do it on everything else. I just can't think of use cases where I really want to do that. The other place I can do it is I can go to the entire case. What if we say that I need the entire case to be resolved within 2 weeks or 5 days or 10 days? Now I have a SLA on the case itself, and I have an SLA, individual SLAs on my assignments when they go into someone's work list. And it gives me the same thing. It gives me the goals, If I need to notify somebody, it gives me the deadline. If I need to notify someone. But in this case, I have a few more options. Is it only this case, or is this case a parent case and it has something to do with my children also? Or is this a single top level case? I got children, but I only want to do an SLA on the top level case. Gives me the capability to do that. All right, so that's an SLA. But this is an App Studio. Remember I told you everything doesn't always show up in App Studio. If I go to Dev Studio and I look at the exact same thing, so change with me to Dev Studio, and I go here. I go to goal and deadline. Now it allows me to, let's see, custom. Here's my goal, here's my deadline. Let me save it, and it should allow me to open it. There we go. So you see that? Now I can come here and open it. It takes me to the actual rule that's created in Pega. Gives it some weird name, but anyway, it's an SLA. It is applied to this class. I'm in my work reservation class. So I could go over here and find it. SLA is process. There it is. Take me to the same place, right? But now you see it. Now this initial urgency is not the urgency for the assignment. It's the urgency for the SLA. So remember I said, and this is a testable question, what is the initial value of an assignment? When they say an assignment, they're saying that collect information, they're saying that UI, what is the initial value? It's 10, it's 10, okay? Now, if I put an SLA on it, I can say, I can put 15 on it here initially. So it doesn't mean that the initial value is 15, the initial value is 25. It's the assignment value plus the initial urgency value. Does that make sense? You guys understand it? Give me a thumbs up. All assignments are set to a default of 10. And then when I add a SLA on it, I can say, this is more important than just a regular assignment because it has an SLA on it. So I want them to be 15 points higher. So any work that has an SLA on it, I don't want it to be at 10. I want them all to be at 25. Now, as a manager, I can look and see everything that has some time associated with it. All right. I can have an SLA, have it start immediately when it's in my list, or dynamically based upon a property, or I can even have it time delayed. But by default, we talk about it being immediately. Now, you've already seen the goal, urgency amount, the actions I can take. All right, I can do many things. I can, now you see, I can not only notify my manager and assignees, I can call a different flow. I can apply a data transform. I can set out a whole notification to a party of people. I can transfer it to somebody. I can run my own unique activity custom code that I want to do something else. So you didn't get all of those features when you were in the other studio. But I can do that for this milestone. These are called milestones, the goal. I can do the same thing for the deadline. And I can do, now I have a past deadline. Now this is interesting. If, for instance, what is this, Friday? Today is Friday. If today is Friday, let's walk through one of these. The goal is 1 day, this is 2 days, and then we'll give you 2 more days, we'll say 20. All right. So let's say that today at 4 o'clock, New York time, Eastern time, at 4 o'clock, this assignment shows up in your work list. At 4 o'clock, it shows up in your work list. It says it is immediate. What is the value of the urgency for this work item? Okay, Muhammad, you're correct. It's 25. It's 25. Okay. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because they'll ask you this type of question on the test, but it's also something you need to do in real life when you're really looking at SLAs and applying them. So our goal was for 1 day, which means let's not take weekends, let's take business days. So if it came in today, I have 24 hours before it exceeds my goal. So what day and what time would that be before I exceed when I would exceed my goal? What day and what time would it be that shows that I exceeded my goal? If it comes in today at 4, and we're only doing business days, so don't count Saturday and Sunday. Yes. So Monday at 4 p.m., Monday at 4 p.m., if it's still in my work list, what is the value of the urgency? Come on, guys. That's why I walked through this one with you. You got to understand SLA. 35. Does everyone know how we got to 35? Remember at 4 o'clock today, it came in my work list. It is an assignment, so it already has a value of 10. It has an SLA on it, and we add an initial urgency to that 10. It was 25. So it was sitting at 25 Friday from 4 to 5, then Monday at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. As soon as it hits 4, it's in your work list. They increase it by 10. Now it's 35. Okay. All right. So what day and what time and what value will the urgency increase to based upon the deadline information? So the question is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Okay. So someone said by Wednesday at 4 p.m., the urgency will increase by 55 because there's 20. So, and then then someone says Tuesday. Absolutely, it's Tuesday, right? See, now it's a little harder to look at. You were adding 2 more days to the 1 day of the goal line, but it's not. Remember, goals are consumed within deadline. So we really only had 2 days. We really only had 2 days. So if it came in Friday, I had Monday, Tuesday at 4 p.m. If it's still in my work list, then it was 35. Now it's going to increase to 55. Making sense? Got to think through it. All right, so now we're Tuesday. It's 4:01. Still in my work list. Urgency's at 55. I still got a job. All right. So now I come through and I say, I got 2 days. Yeah. I have 2 days beyond the deadline. Okay. So now I'll tell you it's Tuesday. And then the deadline says, I'm going to give you 2 more days beyond the deadline. That's the way you read that. Okay. So now, what day and at what time will the urgency increase and what will the value be? Okay. Someone said Thursday. That's correct. Of course, at 4 p.m. And I add 50 to it. And that was kind of a trick question because I didn't tell you urgencies go from 0 to 100. Okay. So even though it calculates to 105, it only show as 100. Okay. So that's how an SLA works. Does anyone have any questions about that? That's how an SLA works. You have to think through it, especially when you're taking the test. They'll ask you about an SLA. If you take the certification, I'm quite sure they'll have a question on the mission test, but you have to think through it. The way I always do it is when they're asking me a question, I simply ignore the goal because the goal really means nothing other than to add the amount. I need to look at, I start with the deadline. What day am I on at the deadline? I'm 2 days beyond where it came into my work list, and cumulative, I'm going to add 20, 30, 15, and 10. Now I know where I am. I can look at the questions. I can start making some answers, start seeking out some answers from there. Daniel.
I had a quick question. Could you go
Okay.
over how we would get the results 105? Like I know the answer would be 100, but how did you get the value of 1.105?
Yeah, because when we got here to the deadline, when we added this 20, that made it 55.
Okay. Oh, so this is just continuing on from the other values that we added
It
before
does.
and then added
Yes,
another 50?
that's correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so the urgencies are cumulative. Urgencies are cumulative. When we're looking at goal and deadline, you really want to look at the deadline timeline because the goal is within that. It's not an addition to, but then the past deadline is beyond the deadline.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Nadir?
I have a question about the business day check mark. If you check mark that where it says only calculate using business days, can you
Uh-huh.
define which days are business days in the system, or is it just going to be the weekends?
You can. You can. I'm going to show you. This is a calendar. Where is it? Let's see if I can find. Let's see. Business calendar default. You can go on in and find that in Pega. Okay. So now when we talk about business days, and you can even specify what days you're actually closed. So that won't count against people. Because I actually have a friend that she works for a group to where they get work in their work queue, and they got to get it done within a certain time frame. They have an SLA on it. They work for an insurance company. I know the insurance company, they use Pega, and they got an SLA on. So it's important to know, is it a business day? What is a business day considered? And what days are closed so that those don't count against the people who are working? So the answer is yes. And you want to have this scheduled absence when you're not available, because when you're not available, you can set it up when the operator is not available, who to send it to. That's a feature too. And this is where I was talking about the implicit routing. So when we do the approval process, here's the org chart. And this is not updated yet, but I would go in and update the reporting structure, who I report to. So now, if there were some approvals that had to happen, the system already knows, right, what the internal reporting structure is. And that's the responsibility of the Pega admin to do that. Mohammed, you have a question?
Yes, it was also regarding the business days. I noticed when you opened it up where you could see, you could define what day is a business day, you'd also put in the time. So with 24 hours, so like, let's say it was like Tuesday, 4 p.m. and then like one day, would that be 24 hours within those times, or?
Well, they're actually looking at the business day because it stops at 1700 hours. So really, if it came in at 4, here's the reality. If it came in at 4 today, you had 1 hour to work on it before your business day is up. Now, of course, you can work on it after 5 o'clock, but realistically, you got until 1700, and then Monday, the clock starts again.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the way that works. All right, wonderful. You guys have any other questions? I think the service level agreement is a very powerful tool, used all the time, not some of the time, used in every project, not just occasional projects. As I mentioned, you probably won't have to use it in yours, but if you want to apply an SLA, definitely feel free to do it. You can apply an SLA. Say something has to be resolved in 1 minute. If you route it to somebody else, just set it to 1 minute. Then you'll actually see it when it exceeds the 1 minute. You'll see the urgency on that assignment increase. Okay, Mohammed, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question or?
Oh, sorry, I just forgot to put it down.
Okay. All right. Thought you would give me a high five there. So, all right, wonderful. All right, so let's take a look here. What else do we have going on? So I covered all of those steps. You guys should know those are all of the steps in Pega that you should be using at least today. Well, we're through for the day, but Monday, Tuesday. Again, there's 185 rules that Pega has, but these would be the majority of the ones that you would definitely use for your project. We'll talk about some declarative rules, and we'll get a little bit deeper into data transform. You know what? Let's take a quick dive at the data transform. See if I can find a data transform. In Pega, we have this thing called a data transform that allows us to manipulate information. Think of it as an assignment operator. You have the right-hand operand, the left-hand operand. You're going to assign the source to a target. That's really what you're doing. So you have the target, the source, the relation. But since it's a rule, it has much more power than that. It can do many things because we have an additional column called an action column. If I use the verb set, it's like a simple assignment or evaluation. If I do an update, I can update an entire page. Remember, I wanted to copy that collection of schedule information from the parent to the child, that's a whole page. We call that a page of data. A list or a collection of objects in Pega, we call it a page. I can call another data transform. I can take the data that I have and tell it to sort it. And I have different sorting mechanisms that I can do with it. Okay. I can do a when something is true, then I want you to carry out some of these functions. I have an otherwise when and an otherwise. So I can put conditionals on my data transforms to determine when I want to carry out some of these updates. I can take an existing set of page of data, let me use the right term, page of properties, and I can append to them. Okay. If you guys familiar with what was it? C, you do a malloc, you go and allocate some memory so you could append to it. That's what it is. Append to it and allocate some memory, append to it, and then you want to add to it. All right. I can do an append and do a map. When I append it, now I have some features I can then map. I can have a collection of objects, pages of data that I can iterate over, like a for loop. I can iterate over that within my data transform, and then I can exit, and then I can exit. So your data transform, when you're looking for places to do calculations, you're looking for places to copy. I think someone was talking about trying to map information from your table to your UI. Then you have to use a data page, but in that data page, there's a data transform that you need to do that particular type of mapping. Okay. Now, by default, Pega will come with this PY default. Think of it as the first place that case data is initialized in Pega. It's like a constructor. If you're an old programmer, you know what that is. When an object is instantiated, then it's initialized at that point. That's what PY default is. So if you want to set certain values, notice that, remember I was telling you that the urgency of an assignment is always 10. You know why? Because it's set right there. That's the very first thing that Pega does. So any urgency that you use, it's already set to 10. Or any assignment that you use, its urgency is already set to 10. Now, you should only use PY default to set system properties, PX, PY, PZ. You should never use PY default to set case data like they did here. That's why they're getting a warning probably, because they're using case data. Should never use case data to do that. Where should I set case data? Well, if you think about it, I need system data to be initialized first, then my case data to be initialized second. Guess what PY default calls? PY set fields default. That's where you want to set your case data. Here it is, and that's where you want to come in and set your data. So if you got certain data you want to set at the beginning at your case, when it's being initialized, then you want to set it in PY set fields default, or you can create your own data transform and you can call it off of maybe the first UI that actually comes up. So that's my lecture on data transform. All right, the approval, I showed you the case approvals and how we are looking at just a simple approval so far, but you will definitely have approvals, and I would encourage you to set up more than a simple approval. At least do a cascading approval and do it with at least 2 or 3 people. And if you're really ambitious on your project, use an authority matrix. Remember that you're sending an email out to a foreign university, and maybe you want them to somehow approve it after a wait state to come back and say, hey, here's something I need you to approve. And you can set up an authority matrix to do that. Did I have an example? I think I showed you here, but let me show you from a case perspective. Now, let me go back to App Studio and show you guys something interesting. You have to know what you can do in App Studio and what you can't do in App Studio. In App Studio, you can't do a cascading approval. It doesn't give you the capability because the mindset is a BA probably doesn't know how to or should not be given the authority to implement cascading approvals. Come on, open up. Think my system is dying. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, I can't get into. Let me do a refresh. Let's try it again. Yeah, it was having system problems. Now let's go into case. I just wanted to show you that that feature is not there. If I come and if I do an approval step, I click on it. My flow, it only allows me to do an approve or reject. That's considered a single approval step, not a cascading approval. So if you decide to do a cascading approval, you have to get into Dev Studio, close all these windows. Now do an approval. Now notice I can do a cascading approval with an internal reporting structure. And I want the approval to be completed by my manager. Or I can do an authority matrix. And now here's a either decision table that I've set up, a page list of people for approvers, and what property you're going to look at, either someone's email or their first name is typically their email that you're looking at. So that's the approval and the cascading approval. All right, so let's look at some of the debugging applications that we have in Pega. You'll have to use those to try to figure out what's going on, to see if you can figure out what your errors are. So we have the tracer tool. Now, what I will say is you can figure out most things with just the clipboard, because it's so easy for you to isolate on a step, to look at what happened before. Even when you go through a decision, you can see what's happening before, what's happening afterwards. It's easy for you to trace what's going on in your application. So I would say first line of defense is always use the clipboard. Always use the clipboard. Now, if you can't figure it out, we do have a heavy-duty, heavyweight tool. It's called the tracer tool. So it works much like many of the other debugging environments, Microsoft, the Visual Studio, the debugger with breakpoints and everything else. So you can do this, but just be aware the Pega tracer gives you mounds of information. It steps you through every rule, through every step within a given rule to show you what's going on. So sometimes you really have to filter the information out to make sense out of all of the stuff that is sending it. So let's go ahead and start the tracer. So let's come here down at the bottom. So let me close this, get rid of this, do an action refresh so that we're good. Save it. All right, so now let's all go down to the bottom here and let's turn on the tracer. Click on tracer, comes up in a separate window. Here's your window. Now, nothing is happening, but just know that you can pause your tracer, you can clear it. If you want to reset it, you have watch variables, you can set breakpoints, even do remote tracing, and you can save it. You can download it and save it. So let's go to settings, come up in a little separate window also. Now, this is a lot of information. As you're going through it, you can trace all types of events. Do I want to trace from start to end of my data transform actions, my when rules? I probably do. So I normally leave those alone. I can have, normally don't mess with this, but here's where you need to make a decision. Do I want to look at my database caching? In a real environment, you probably would. In your project, that's not going to help you to look at any of this information here, but you may want to look at a declarative decision tree that you've made if you got some type of authority matrix. You may want to look at the flow rules, but to be honest with you, you can see those in as you're just going through the application. So there's many of these that you really don't want checked. But then what's important is rule sets. Notice these are all your Pega rule sets. You don't need to select all of these. If you select all of these, you're going to see a lot of information over here. A lot of information because it's calling Pega rules to do all of this stuff. So I typically deselect Pega rules. I want to look at if I got my check-in, check-out rule set. If I got rules in there, I want to look at that. And I probably will only put rules in that very top level rule set called car rentals. If you are going to make some separate classes and integration, you probably got that. And that's probably where you're going to put all your rules. So with that being said, that's all you need to do. That's going to limit some of it. And then this definitely has an impact on your system when it starts running. See if I can save and run. See if it sends anything through. There we go. And you can see that it tells me starting at the bottom, going up, it's on PY work page. All right. What's the first thing it did? It called that PY default to that data transform, and it set what? PX urgency. Then it went through and it ended that action and it started and did some other sets. All of this is on PY work page and the PY work page data transform. Got into some audit fields so he can continue the initialization here. And it just continues to trace. If I want to watch certain values, I could do that. If I wanted to set a breakpoint somewhere, I could also do that. And as I continue to log in, anything that hits those rule sets, it's going to capture it and it's going to put it here. See if I can. Hit some approval. All right, so And now you can see that it just continues to add more and more information. All right, so, but that's definitely a tool of last resort. If you can't get things to work, then you definitely want to use that tool to help you do some debugging. The other thing you need to know about Pega, this is part of the certification, but working as a skill set that you need to know. There are logs that Pega provides. Here you go, system, go to operation, go to logs. Now, you won't need it for this project, but I promise you, you'll need it for your real world projects. You'll need to look at the logs. There's several type of logs that Pega generates that you need to know that will help you understand what's going on in the system. So let's go ahead and click on logs. And you'll see that here's the log files. Click on log files. It should open up the separate window. I'll do it this way so we can read some of it. And you'll see that the alert log, the alert security log, gives you, this is the alert security log. This is one of the more common logs that we look at because we have something called guardrails. What is a guardrail? Guardrails are predefined best practices that are implemented in Pega so that when you execute an application, if it violates a guardrail for the sake of performance, it will create an alert. And that's built into Pega. Okay. So all the alerts, not only are they in this log that I made mention of, but if you go to issues, I bet you guys got some issues too. I'm not the only one with issues. Your friends ever tell you that you have issues? Okay, but if you come and look here, you'll see that we've built some of these small pages or these small solutions, and we're running them, and the system is telling us you guys are violating guardrails. So, for instance, I know that for any time that it's trying to do a browser interaction, it should be 1 second or less. It said, hey, it took you 4.9 seconds to bring this browser up. And you can even go and expand it, and it gives you a whole lot of detail. So alert logs are very important in real world situations, in real projects. You're working on something and there's some issues you have to address. And as a matter of fact, before you can go live, move something to production, the LSA of the team will look at this and say, we cannot go to production until we clean these up. That's part of unit testing, right? Scenario testing. Until you can clean these up, or until we get someone to sign off on these to know that this is the type of performance we're going to have, then we will not go live. Those are some of the types of rules that you find. Now, this Pega, this has all the rules in it. So anytime there are system errors, any type of errors, there's a feature, a system feature, you could go in a system logging level that you can go in and set. You can set that system logging level, and you can capture all important messages, all help messages, all critical messages, whatever you set that to. So those are probably the two major logs that you look at on a day-to-day basis. That's very, very important to you and to Pega for the solution that you're trying to build. All right, so let's take a look now at testing. So most of you are already familiar with testing. We have different types of testing: unit testing, test cases, test scenarios. But let me show you in Pega how we test. One of the powers of Pega is the ability to test what's already there. And you can test a rule, the lowest element in Pega for development. You want to test the rule first before you make it part of your workflow. So how do I test the rule? About the only rule that I remember that we have out here is data pages. Now, really good rules to test would be that data table that you created, a data page that's being created. What else could we test? Those are typically some of the you can test a data transform. You have to pass some information to it. But let me show you where to look if you want to do a unit test. If you want to do a unit test, it's at the rule level. So you got to get to the rules to do that. You can't do it in App Studio. You have to come to Dev Studio, find the particular rule, and then over here under action, you'll either see something that says run or test. Typically, it says run. Now, watch what this is doing. This is doing a unit test on this page list that will bring back a list of structures from this data object by using this report definition. I want to test this out before I make it part of my flow. What do? I go to action and I do a run. It should come up in a separate window for you. Okay, you always want to flush instances just so you can clean it. Hold on, something's wrong with my window. Let's try it again. Okay, so I am having problems. Let me try customer. Maybe it's, I think I'm just having problems with my with my system. Let me try this one. If not, I'll go to my little example because I was running it the other day and it was working. It is not, it's not painting my window. So is anyone trying this in their window? It's you're able to bring it up?
Mine is working, yeah. Or like I can see like
yeah.
clipboard trace run.
Why don't you share your screen with me, please, with everyone? I could go to something else, but let's just look at it on someone else's screen.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Okay, so now you guys see that he clicked on run. You get this separate little window that comes up, and it says run trace clipboard. You want to check the flush all instances of this database for execution. Then you want to click run again. Okay, so now you get the results. Now it comes down at the bottom, you'll see there's a PX results. So there are no records in there. Okay, let's see if we can find PX. Yeah, so if, for instance, you get some rows back, see there's a 0 row count. Let's go see if you got something in the customer object. So go to the customer, expand it, and go to the list, and go to action, run, flush, trace, PX results. There we go. We had at least one record in there. You guys see that? Okay. So I've created that as a, I can then run it. I can also convert it into a test. So a test is actually a rule type in Pega, though, so I could go back and run it again. So go up to convert to test. And notice it's creating a new record, it's creating a new rule. And here I can actually, there's a description that's associated with it, some assertions. I can go and modify those to see what my expected results are and say that, you know, if it doesn't fall within this, I can click that button and it says, then it fails the test, you know. So there's a lot I can do with this. So if you're wanting to test something over and over again and it's very complicated, very convoluted, then you can do a unit test and you can save it off as a test case. And then you don't have to come back and then reconfigure it every time. Okay. And also scroll down a little bit more. Right. And if there are other properties that you want to add with it, then you can then go and you can do that. Okay. So simply put, when you have the ability to do a unit test, and you actually don't have to save it. But okay, thank you very much. So
Yeah.
when you do a unit test and you want to save it so you can come back and do it again without having to go through and configure like you've done before, then that's how we do the test cases in Pega. And I believe that's about all you guys can stand today, right? But before you go, we have 20 minutes, and let's make sure you guys can explain to me what you've learned. This is important. And I'll ask for volunteers first before I call on people, but can someone explain to me how to create and configure a child case with data propagation? Let me bring up something
I can
that will help
give
you.
it a shot.
Okay. Okay.
So if you go to add a case type in Dev Studio, like where you are now,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the advanced settings, you derive it from, or you choose a derive in pattern, or the directed in pattern derives from settings to what you want the parent to be.
Okay. All right. So now
And
let me
then
ask you here. I went and created this step. So now what do I have to do over here?
oh, make it tiny. You click on the where data transform is, the settings beside it.
Okay, here.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, never mind.
Well,
I think from here you
fine.
can just select the child case, or
There, yeah. There we go.
yeah,
We come here and we select the child case, right? We want to create
yeah, and create
a
child
child
case.
case. We select the child
Okay.
case. All
Yeah.
right. And then we create a data transform. Now, I'm doing this from Dev Studio. We're not going to configure it, but here in Dev Studio, I'd create the data transform so that I could copy whatever I wanted from the parent to the child.
Right. Okay.
Right.
But if we do that in App Studio, it does that
It's
for you, right?
much easier.
Yeah.
That's right. So I would strongly encourage you, if you do it from do it from App Studio. You come here. Where is it? Create case, select.
And then you would just select the parent or the
There
child.
we go. And
And
that's
yeah,
how you do the data propagation.
yes.
Very, very, very good. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, great. So, all right, can someone explain how do you configure to identify duplicate cases? And by the way, I just want you to know these are exam questions. Identify duplicate case. The one where we talked about the parent-child, this is the business exam, but that one's on the system architect exam. So these are not just random questions that I'm asking you. These are questions that are directed to the certification, which is where my lectures are coming from. All right. So who can explain to me how to configure for a duplicate case?
I can do
Okay,
that.
I'm ready.
Okay, so you would hover over one of your processes, I believe.
Okay, when you say one of my processes,
Like you would go to the
you mean one
flow
of these?
chart,
Oh, okay, okay. I will do it that way. I got you. All right.
and then you would add an object.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to automations and then search duplicate cases.
I sure will. Okay.
And then you can go to the properties of that,
Okay.
or on the right side, you can add a
Yeah.
condition.
Here we go. Let's see. Duplicate case. Hold on. So it doesn't allow me to do it in the flow shape initially.
For me, it gives an option on the right side for like a basic condition and all that.
When you click on it,
Yeah,
okay.
like the sidebar on the right side pops up and it's like add a basic condition, add a
Uh-huh.
weighted condition.
I think that's
Yes.
because when you don't click open process in Dev Studio, like if you X this window out, kind of,
Okay. Hold on just a
where beside
second.
the save button, if you click that X,
Okay.
and
So
then
you're saying that
you go back to that page, like where you click beside it, because where like reserve vehicle, yeah,
okay, got it. So here,
and then yeah,
this is where you say, yeah, because this is the
Yeah.
because the same I went through the same thing.
duplicate case. There we go. There it is.
Yeah.
All right. So basic condition. Can you explain what is basic condition? What is that? What is that saying in the scheme of things?
It's pretty much like you can um, what you're looking for as a duplicate. So
Yeah.
I believe what we
Yeah.
did was case ID. So if the case ID was the same, it would
Uh-huh.
bring up all the same case IDs.
All right. And then what's this number for in the weighted conditions?
You can add a number to decide when the process runs. The duplicate cases like brings up all the cases.
Okay.
Because you can
Yeah.
add multiple
So
conditions, and you can have some conditions be weighted more than others. And if all the conditions pass a certain threshold, it'll throw the duplicate cases out.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say that I'd set this to 10. So basically what you're saying is it is a candidate. It is potentially a duplicate when it meets the basic condition. That means I
Yes.
need to do further investigation, and I set a threshold at 10 for these weighted conditions. So if at any time my weighted conditions equal or exceed what my threshold is, then I'm going to consider that a duplicate, and I'm going to display or pop up my duplicate, my list, so you can see that this is a duplicate case.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how duplicate search works. Excellent. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I can get out of this. Okay, discard. All right. So someone explain how to manage concurrent case access and locking strategies.
I can explain that.
All right. Excellent.
So in the case type, you can go to settings right there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can scroll down to locking at the bottom. Yes. And then you can decide whether it locks for one user or
Mhm.
multiple users.
Right.
And you can also set
And
out a timeout value.
there we go. There we go. So yeah, very, very simply done. It's done at the case type level. Yeah, very simple. All right. Can someone explain to me how to configure single and or cascading approvals using reporting structure authority matrix? Anyone want to try that one? Are you sure? See if I can give you guys some hints here. Can someone take it from here? All right, so we know that we have a step that can do that and can do all three. What's my first selection?
The
If I
approval
want
flow type.
single, yeah. If I want single or cascading. So those are my only two options, single or cascading. When I get into cascading, now what are my options? Reporting and authority matrix. Someone tell me, what's the difference between reporting and authority matrix? Or when would I use reporting versus when would I use authority matrix?
Authority matrix is a bit more complicated. You can use it with different levels of permissions coming from different types of operators or managers, stuff like that.
Right. So it doesn't have to be part of my reporting structure. It could be managers in different departments within my company. It could be individuals who are external to my company. Then I have to use a reporting matrix. Where does the reporting structure get its information from? Do you know which rule it looks at? If something lands in your work list, how does it know who your manager is? Where is that found?
Is it
It
the
follows
organizational
the
chart?
oh
Someone was saying something. I didn't hear him.
I just said the organizational chart
Yeah,
or
right,
that one,
right
yeah.
here. It's called organizational unit, but you're right. This is our routing information. So here I would put in whoever my manager is. Matter of fact, that is a responsibility when all of the developers and stakeholders, if they're into the system, and BAs, everyone has to put in their reporting structure, who they report to. See how that's all set up? All the reporting structure, so that routing can automatically take place at any given time. That the approvals, if I'm doing an internal application, that all works. And so if I'm building this and I'm a consultant for someone and I need to get their reporting structure so that they have the appropriate approval process. Okay, excellent. All right, can you explain how to record a unit test? Or I guess an easier way to say that, how do I execute a unit test on a rule?
In the actions button, we have an option called run.
Okay, yeah, you know what? Let me see if I can find where's the see if I can find the table I created. Let me show you guys. So we can see something else other than the one that you've seen. Come on. I think I created it. Where did I create that table? Didn't I create a table somewhere, guys? Hold on. Maybe I didn't save it. No, I actually did. Didn't you guys remember me creating a table when I went in here? Let me see if I can find it. No, I didn't. I didn't save it. Okay. Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. Let me go back to it. I did that the other day. All right. So someone was telling me to go to action and run, which is true. But you do have to be in Dev Studio. I can find list. I think we had customer, right? I come over here, I do an action run. So this is where I had someone else do it. So then we would come here and run it. And then we have the option to create a test, to save it as a test. Okay, that's all we have for today. We can talk about some of these others later on.